Jersey fishing boats are owned by local families.
Yeah.
They're not owned by companies, which actually when you start going away from Jersey, and actually is the case increasingly so across the world, fishing boats are not owned by the captain anymore or the skipper. They are owned by a mass conglomerate company.
We're gonna end up again, because I think there was a ban on sea bass at some point, right? Do you think that we're gonna end up with something like this soon?
You've got groups that are coming in with no knowledge and understanding of our Jersey ecosystem. It's just constant effort with fish with no chance, basically. And it's not that I say just stop fishing, obviously I don't. But you can fish sustainably, and fishing can be sustainable, and it is in certain places.
My guest today is Gabby from Jade-S Fisheries, and today we're going to be talking about the Jersey fishing industry and how this works with hospitality to put local seafood on our table, but in the same time, how do we keep this sustainable in the years to come? Let's see what she's got to say.
Gabby, thank you for accepting my invitation to come to Hospitality Insights. I really appreciate you. Actually, we had a really kind of funny conversation that I called you Jade, but your real name is Gabby. So for most people actually that call you Jade, just so you guys know, Gabby. That's that. They start from there. Yeah, you are the second woman on the podcast, the second power woman, I would say, because you're on in a world full of men. So I'm thinking that you must be really strong, in this world in order to kind of survive. Tell me about a bit about your story. How did you get into fishing and into this trade? Because it's not something that probably many women probably think of, and they probably don't even think that this is suitable for a woman. Although probably, I'm sure by now you proved them wrong.
I hope so. Thank you for the compliments to start with. It's always nice to hear that. So actually I've always been interested in fish and seafood and fishing. My family were very much boaters, so we always had rods and we had fun trying to catch our own mackerel, and that was always a staple in the family and things like that, or snipe, whatever it was. And then I met my partner Leighton, who is a full-time Jersey fisherman, a number of years ago now. And as soon as we started dating, and you get to see this industry, but there's also this community of people and what it's like. And I got back on a boat. I was able to exercise. I was out there. I was laughing because everyone in the industry generally is really quite funny. They're a good laugh to be around. It just sort of suddenly absorbed me into it, and I felt so welcome. And I think a lot of the time, as you say, you don't traditionally think of the fishing industry as a female dominated. It's very much, you see male dominated, men in boats, men skippers and things like that. But that's very much a Western culture view, I think, in terms of very, very much British in that sense, that, you look at Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, and places like that. Women are across the fishing boats, across the industry, running companies, working and processing. They can be skippers, they can be deck crew, and they're in some of the most treacherous seas or like hardy jobs, but they're there. And I think in Jersey, there are women there. We're just not necessarily as obvious. There are, yes, not as many women on boats here. There are a couple of us who actually go out and fish on the boats. But when you look at the statistics of male to female, actually in terms of women owning a boat, there's actually only one other woman who owns her own boat. Our boat is actually owned by my partner, who's a male. So I'm just his deck crew when, I can be for him. There is that disparity. But there are women across the industry. So if you sort of come away from fishing and don't think of it as a man on a boat, there's a lot of ancillary businesses and other businesses that actually support hospitality. So you have your crab pickers, your fishmongers, your merchants and things like that. And actually inside of those businesses, women are absolutely everywhere. And I have some great friendships with them. One of the biggest exporters, Aquamar, is actually pretty much run by a woman, which is incredible. That's Natalie. And then you also have women absolutely everywhere in the industries, whether they're accountants or owners and things like that. And of course, myself, we are there. We're just not as seen, because I think it's just a natural influence that we all go man on a boat, or man fishing is man and boat. It actually has so much more to it as an industry.
Yeah, I totally agree. But then I think you're doing also a good job with your social media. So that's why more people know you.
Oh, thank
you. So you're posting quite a bit. And then, it was kind of obvious that, okay, here she is, like if you are probably behind the scenes and if you're not specific, I mean, I'm not anymore. I used to work as a chef, but I'm not there anymore. Probably for chefs that are still doing it, they know a lot more women doing it. Like you said,
sure.
You don't need to be specifically on the boat to be in the industry.
No.
It's same as hospitality as a whole. There's so many other jobs. It can be marketing, but you still do it for a hotel, for example, or for a restaurant. It can be all sorts. And that's why, I wanted someone from... And I want suppliers, like basically you are a supplier, apart from being providing fish probably for overseas, because I guess you do that a bit as well.
It's not anymore, actually.
Oh no,
no. We've completely switched it. So whereas previously our boat would have always exported its product, since 2020, so basically Brexit and COVID conglomeration of craziness, it completely flipped our industry on its head. And our sort of way to combat those two issues we could foresee was to switch and not export anymore and do only public or only local sales, sorry. So i.e. we only sell to the public or we only distribute to local hotels, restaurants, cafes and things like
enough? That. Is that sustainable in terms of like...
it's difficult.
Of what the market can absorb, basically.
And it fluctuates a lot. The market does fluctuate a lot. You might have a bumper year where every cafe, restaurant, hotel, everybody wants some local produce. And then you get times where actually that really decreases. And then you sort of forecasted, we can make this work. But actually there's a massive drop for some reason, whatever it is, whether it's sort of fashion or if it's the weather or if, and the weather really does drive our business as much as it probably does in hospitality. But it does do in hospitality. Yeah. You need that sunshine, that warm weather to really get people out and happy and being and using these locations. And the fishing industry relies on that too. So it can supply the local market. So what we thought we would do is, rather than rely on very fluctuant exports, let's go fully local and keep it niche, keep it boutique and keep it top quality and be something that the local population and any sort of foreign population might want to see and look into what we're doing. They know everything is local. I don't import any fish. The only thing we will import is prawns, purely because we don't have a fishery for that here. Yeah. But every single thing is local and it's caught, and I can tell you who caught that. Whether it was us or another fishing boat. So we'll buy off all the local fleet as well so that they're supported. It's not just one boat. And actually to give the diversity that hospitality requires for a menu, you have to be diverse in what you're offering. So our boat is flips between being a shellfish boat to a rod and line fish boat. And we try to even do low water fishing as well. So we can access lots of different diverse markets and menus.
What's the difference? I mean, I guess, the difference between low water fishing is like there's certain fish that only kind of like lives in low water, and then deep water would be the fish that obviously is in the... But what are the varieties of fish what are you focusing on? Do you have something you're focusing on, or are you more driven by the market? It's like, okay, if let's say they ask for lobsters, then I'm just going to go lobsters. Yeah. If let's say they ask crab, I'm going for crab. What's the variety you usually go for?
It's a bit of a mix of everything, really. And yes, sort of demand and sort of the market demand does influence how we fish. So if I know I've got at least one or two places that want a substantial amount of the same thing, it warrants us going to target that specifically. As a boat, tend to, as Jade-S, tend to always go with what we know our clients need, what we want for our fish sales on the weekends, and then we base it on that and what are the species doing, what's seasonal. So that's really big for us. There's no point going for something that's not going to be there.
Fair point.
And obviously at the minute is with our crazy weather we've been having, it's been a bit more difficult to get that seasonality in. But what we essentially do is try to work out what's coming in, when's it in season, where is it, and who's going to want it. There's no point fishing for something if no one's going to buy it, because that's just waste and that's not sustainable.
Yeah, especially because you're doing only for the local market. Yes. The variety, I guess, is not... You can't... It's something that I actually talked to Tom from Sunfire.
Oh yeah,
he was saying,
lovely.
Yeah, but he was saying that he's kind of annoyed because people only want sea bass, they only want turbot, and they only want, let's say, crab and lobster.
Yeah.
So you are... And then the same thing was Steve from Samuelville. He was saying, you're kind of like reducing that pool of fish, that you just kind of like targeting the same again and again. And then I guess, that's long term, we're going to all get affected, and you're going to see less and less lobster, less and less crab, less and less sea bass, I guess, and whatever is kind of like popular.
Yeah, 100%. That is truly the case. And that's actually what you can see across fish stocks internationally. Popular fish, their stocks are reducing. And not in our local fleet, but in foreign fleets, wherever they come from, you have these mass super ships, which basically have supercomputers on them that can target entire shoals and just chase them on their whole journey just to supply that one popular fish. And it's crazy because if people actually diversify away from those staples that you see everywhere, and you see it in the supermarkets too, it's the same fish species. And nowadays you're also getting the super trawled and the farmed, which necessarily also comes with its own impacts too, rather than actually going to a local place or a local fisherman or a fishmonger that specializes in local seafood, where you can eat what's local to your waters, which is generally better for you anyway. But also helps your local fleet, which, particularly if they're small day boats, it's so important. And it also gives you a diverse palette as well. And in the meal range, rather than always being the same, perhaps top 4 or 5 fish. Which also then carry big air miles too, of course. So you're kind of actually reducing the freshness and the quality. Actually, if you try something weird and quirky that you kind of raise an eyebrow at, generally that fish is probably one of the tastiest things you ever try.
What are the most overlooked species, that you could say that, okay, I wish we could implement these, into the hospitality, because so many people are missing out. Apart from obviously the regular, do you have something in mind? Let's say, what would be a few varieties? Like, look, I really wish we have an abundance of these. Why we just don't go for that? Why people don't want it? Is there something like that in Jersey?
Yeah, we have the grey mullet, which we don't get from the harbours. Everyone might raise an eyebrow at that, but no. There's a grey mullet that you can get from the reefs and offshore lying areas. It's absolutely beautiful. It's in good stock numbers. It reproduces easily. It's very similar to bass, but it's got the oiliness of a mackerel. It is absolutely stunning to eat. You can cook it in so many different ways, whether you want to make fish and chips or you want to do pan fried. So it's a great replacement for a bass, for example. Whether you want to use it in a curry, it's got a nice big thick flesh. So actually it works really well, and it's cheap. And actually it's a fish that the fishermen can get a lot of, but don't have a market for. So for the last 3 years, I've sort of been pushing for my customers to start trying this fish so that I can give a market to the local fishermen. And there's been 1 or 2 places that have taken us up on it. And the feedback from generally customers having it at home has been brilliant. So that's just one example of one fish that could make a massive impact, not only on the stocks of perhaps sea bass, but also a massive impact on a local industry that does need some support, and it needs new places to shift its fish basically and be able to go fishing, to know that there's a market for it. The other one, actually, I would say, is spider crabs. Although there is very much a local love for spider crabs, there is a dominance over the shanker crab here. The shanker crab wants colder waters than what we have today. There is evidence of it migrating up north into even places like York and Norfolk, up that sort of far northern reaches, and even in Norway now, where they didn't have it before because it wants that cold, big swell, nasty weather. Jersey over the years has been changing, and although we've always had the spider crab in sort of our generational knowledge, it isn't the crab of choice naturally for everyone. And to realize actually this crab we can catch in abundance. Every fisherman will throw, every single day they go fishing, they will throw so much of it back to the sea because there's no demand for it. So what we do at Jade-S is actually we absorb that crab where we can, and we have a full-time crab picker called Isabel, so another dominant female.
Shout out to the female in the industry. Yeah, well done.
She's absolutely incredible. She's been picking crab for 20 years, and this woman, what she doesn't know about crabs and getting some meat out of crab, but you don't need to know, you know. And she works full-time 6 days a week for us, and she literally processes all of that crab. So it's not just our boat landing, we can buy off the other fishermen too, and there's a bit more of a market for them, and that's what we distribute into the hotels and cafes locally and restaurants. But to have people sort of shift onto that would make a massive difference, because quite often I have found restaurants and locals or visitors alike want the brown crab, the shanker crab, which we just aren't catching anymore. And we shouldn't overfish it whilst it is, whilst spider crab's in season. Let's go down the spider crab route.
What's the difference in terms of pricing? If you, let's say, you were to compare the shanker crab to spider crab, what would be the difference? Considering that the shanker crab it's not quite here.
About half.
Wow.
Maybe just under half. Yeah. So about half the price difference. And that's just because of the numbers that you get. The sheer quantity of spider is there. And it's just not as popular. Again, it's another fashion fish, if that makes sense.
But is this because, so where do you see the problem? Is this because the chefs are not inclined to get it and kind of putting in menus? Or is it when you go to these markets where you have regular people coming and buying, which one is more off-putting, in terms of like new?
I think actually it's sort of maybe a mix of both, because there are chefs out there who absolutely love going for that new sustainable, that quirky fish or that local fish. And there's some who really fly the flag for it. And that's absolutely amazing. And you get the same with members of the public too. But I think a lot of this is where media and things like that come into, or maybe perhaps TV programs that use these fish types, that get into fish books, that get onto all these cooking programs. Again, it's the same ones. Because they're not sort of, I suppose, specified to the local area, and therefore people get used to a certain thing and an ease of a certain thing. You can always find a process ready to cook meal with that fish in that's not from your local waters, if that makes sense. So it's much easier, and then it becomes routine and pattern, and changing that routine and that pattern is really difficult. And then you get all the hearsay, oh, that's not a very nice fish or something. And actually, it's just a rumor that the friend said, and it's just stuck in their brain for years and years, and they've been eating the same thing. So it's sort of breaking a lifetime habit, or even a couple of years worth of habit, to try convince people that it's safe. And actually, seafood is really easy to cook. It's not difficult. And actually, it's not fishy and most of the time. Sometimes I think there's a connotation. And I also think there's a big connotation of that, like, it's the seafood that made me sick, if that makes sense. And that winds me up, because it really probably wasn't. It was probably something completely different, maybe how many lagers you had or something, who knows?
And then also with this food poisoning, like what people don't know, like obviously when you get to, because I've done a bit of like studying, because I had no other option, done some here at the college, some in Romania, and there are certain issues that you can pick up days after. It doesn't mean that if you had something an hour or 2 hours ago or yesterday, you're gonna get it now. So it could be something totally different, just because you're not informed, or you probably never even went to the doctor, so you just assume that it was that.
Well, I think that comes into it oddly, because I do, and it sounds weird, but it is something I hear all the time, and people being nervous about eating it because it's a bit different. Whereas I suppose meat is much more of a staple in most people's diets on average, but that is something I hear. So it is. It is harder to convince people into sort of more quirky or local options. But, there's some great things out there, and you just got to give it a try, and sort of, doesn't need much.
Yeah. But apart from fishing, obviously you love fishing. There's no question about it, because you got into this. But do you like cooking as well? Because you gave me a few insights, so I'm guessing that you do, right? So what's your favorite? What do you cook, let's say, what's your favorite dish if you were to cook?
That's really hard. No, I love food. Absolutely love it. And I love cooking and experimenting. It doesn't always go right, because I am no chef. I have a thing for flavors. I have a thing for flavors, and seafood in general. Just, I love it. We pretty much at home, me and Leighton only are pretty much pescatarians, which makes sense, and it's cheaper. Exactly. But we like to keep it generally at home very simple, very basic.
It's just like a bit of butter, a bit of lemon.
That's it. And Jersey rolls. And some veg, that's just like a staple at home, whether it's pan fried or oven baked. Occasionally I'll go a bit extreme and make like a sort of an Asian style to go with the fish or something, like chili and ginger and honey and soy and stuff. But generally it's very simple, very plain, very quick. We're quite busy.
Which is as seafood should be, really, because in most situations, if you go too crazy, you kind of like lose that.
I think that's it.
Freshness, you lose, I don't think it needs much.
Yeah, I'm maybe not the chef's best friend in the sense that I'm always like, just fried with lemon's fine. But we actually love it that much that we bought a cafe this year as well. So we bought Archironda Driftwood Cafe.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we bought into that this year. So we're part
I need to check that out then. I'm sure it will be a lot of fish there.
There's a lot of fish there. But, obviously today's world is very important to make sure everyone can eat there. So I've made sure there's vegan, veg.
So do you have a chef there then?
Yeah, we've got 3 in there at the minute, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, we've just expanded the team. And we're just, again, going to try elevate it again. Going to do a few more cool different things and trying to introduce new ideas and lots more seafood. So all the seafood's local, bar the staples of prawns and mussels, because you can't, I don't think, you can't do a beachside cafe without that.
Yeah, fair point.
But, there's a real dominance. Every seafood dish pretty much has local, and it has local thrown in everywhere, whether it's the royals, the vegetables, like that is my bag. So I just, I ask people to do it with seafood, so I should try do it with everything else I eat. So where we can, we're just putting in any local produce, and that's great. And actually seeing the seafood that I catch personally, and all my partner catches, all my friends in the community catch, coming out on plates and people enjoying it is just amazing. And being able to sort of talk with proper chefs about my ideas on an idea, I think, could this work? I might have seen it on TikTok or Instagram years ago and had this idea, and will this flavor work with this local fish? Instead of this, will it work with this? And the kitchen team just sort of playing for me and working it out has been incredible, because it's something I couldn't really do myself, but I've been sort of dreaming of these food ideas, and I've actually always wanted to write a cookbook, like, for some reason.
You never know now. You're going to have one just fish.
It might not be mine. It might be the kitchen team's. But
well, at least you can put your name on it. It's like, this was me all along,
Yeah, so I've always loved food. So
I did not know about the
we've kept it relatively quiet, to be fair.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't want to overdo it, and we wanted to get our feet under the ground and really understand it properly.
But how long ago was this that you got it, and when you started being under your ownership? When was it?
So we took over our shares of it in January. So still very new. We did some renovation works, painting, cleaning up and things like that over sort of January, February. And sort of start of March, we did a very soft, slow opening with the changes of a sort of a very basic printed out menu, on A4 paper that we could change just to try and get it open and start generating footfall again. I hate the idea of ever being closed. As like a businesswoman, I'm just, be open all the time, as much as you can, just be working year round as much as I can. We don't, well, maybe we overwork. Some people say that, but I don't think so. When you're passionate and you want to see something work, then you just got to go and just constantly be at it, and you just don't stop, I suppose. And so we were kind of taking that, and that's very much also a fishing mentality of you just go and you keep going, and there's sort of this you strive,
not finding excuses and all that.
Yeah, it's very hardy. It's like you just go no matter what's happening. You just.
But that's why I said you're a power woman. I knew that I got it right. Yeah, absolutely. But do you think?
But I'm supported hugely by the men around me. It's not just about me being a power woman. I'm really supported by the blokes who's supporting me and welcome me in. I have not felt an ounce of "you're a girl, you can't do it. You're a girl, you're not welcome." If anything, they're just really excited someone else wants to come and be part of the industry. So they've been super welcoming, but I couldn't do it without that support and the help and the guidance from the blokes, really, from that, and obviously all the other women in the industry, of course. But you don't get it unless you sort of get welcome. So
do you think that without your partner, maybe you wouldn't be in this situation? Not in terms that he, let's say, help you, but probably you would have not started, doing what you're doing.
Yeah, probably. I think that's fair to say. He's
just because for people that don't know, you were doing something totally different. That's why I'm saying.
Yeah. So before I worked for the government of Jersey, and then before that I worked as a geologist on mines and things like that. So the geology side, I've always been a bit of a tomboy. I wanted to be around the sort of masculine industries, and then I sort of moved more into the civil service, and then really having that ability to jump out again and go into that more hands-on world that I kind of always craved was absolutely brilliant. But I certainly don't think I would have thought that would be where I'd be. So he definitely made an influence there, and actually all of his community. Although I will say, I did say to my mum when I was 7, I wanted to be a fishmonger, because I went down to the fish market. Actually, it was Jade-S Fisheries, who still exists today. Yeah. And I met them on a school trip. And I just loved it. And of course I liked fish anyway, because my dad and my brother were always bringing fish. That was one of my favorite things. I remember picking up this conger reel in there, obviously not alive, but holding this conger, no, I would not do that even today. Holding this conger reel, and it was just brilliant. And it's something that stuck with me. And I was always obsessed as a kid, even at uni when I was doing projects on paleontology. The fish ones were so much more interesting to me for some reason. So it's not
there were signs there.
There were signs, yeah. I just needed to meet the right fisherman, I guess.
Oh, well done. Yeah, I'm actually happy that you work out well. At least for now, it's all good.
It's all for now. Yeah, for now.
It's all good. So, do you think, like, going back to the overfishing? I mean, not necessarily overfishing of certain species. Do you think that we're gonna end up again? Because I think there was a ban on sea bass at some point, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Do you think that we're gonna end up with something like this soon, in like the near future, if we continue doing it this way?
I think unfortunately yes, and positively yes at the same time. I come from sort of a very modern generation of thinking where actually putting in, and that's us and a good group and clunk of the fishing community as well, where we think actually putting in the right measures to protect species and stocks early is a very good idea, so long as it doesn't hinder sort of the fishing fleet, the local fishing fleet, the indigenous small-scale fisheries, then that can be a good thing. So long as something else is given to them in place. So it's not necessarily handing money, but opening another stock. So something else that's been closed for a long time that actually in our waters is in abundance, that could actually
be the opportunity to get other
and it will allow the switch. Other fisheries in the world do seasonal closures. So, you can fish this species for this period of time, then it closes this one, then this one, and this one. Unfortunately, I find where you start closing off everything, you're fishing into a fleet, into one area. So crab and lobster is a dominant thing, but then everyone's doing that one thing and you don't have any diversity. Then these other stocks are going to be going crazy booming, and this one's getting really depleted. So
the balance is just breaking.
And then we have the issues of... it sounds really hard to say, but you've got groups that are coming in with no knowledge and understanding of our Jersey ecosystem, that look at laws passed in other countries that don't necessarily reflect.
Breaking.
And then we have the issues of, it sounds really hard to say, but you've got groups that are coming in with no knowledge and understanding of our Jersey ecosystem, that look at laws passed in other countries that don't necessarily reflect, and larger and stronger. And actually, our waters don't reflect the same thing that's happening in St. Malo. It doesn't reflect the same thing in Guernsey or even in the south of the UK.
So it's better basically here in terms of...
I wouldn't say better. I would say it's just different.
Oh, okay.
So you can't compare rules in one place to this place. Fair. And unfortunately, that often seems to be the case that happens. And the easy answer is to target the small-scale local fleet rather than actually the big problem in the oceans, which are mass ships and also big excessive movements like in Jersey's waters at the minute. We have an increase of activity from fishing vessels that aren't local, and they are bigger boats, more efficient boats.
French.
Or other, yes. But there are in the channel... obviously other boats from all over the world there.
Is it because we are not supervising very well our waters? Are we getting into this kind of issue where...
I think it's sort of a misunderstanding on that. It's really easy to implement rules and implement them on the local, easy, accessible people who are literally day boats, small, tiny fishing boats that go out to day. They have a home, they have a land base, and they're not fishing 7 days a week anymore.
You know where to find them.
Yeah, and it's easier. It's your own people. Whereas actually when it comes to dealing with international relations and things like that, everything gets a lot more complex and much more difficult. And actually, when you get to these bigger vessels, what we must remember is Jersey fishing boats are owned by local families. They're not owned by companies, which actually when you start going away from Jersey, and actually is the case increasingly so across the world, fishing boats are not owned by the captain anymore or the skipper. They are owned by a mass conglomerate company. And then the amount of resources being able to push into that boat, whether it's lawyers or the new size vessels with the new technology, you just can't compete. And these vessels are so much more efficient and can fish 24/7 in almost any weather, Whereas you've got a very small local boat owned by a local guy who cares about his waters, and he cares about his son or his daughter taking over from him and having a future. He cares whether or not there's a dolphin still for us to see. And actually, you've got to think that our boats are so small. Most of them are single-handed today. So they're run by one person. And, you know, we don't have these massive ships that people imagine fishing is. They are very small, just locals.
I mean, I see marinas, you know, it's like they're tiny comparing to if you go somewhere, as you said, you know, even if you go in San Malo, if you go in there, in that area where the fishing boats are, you can see like some huge ones, a lot bigger than what we've got here.
And they can run crews. And what often happens with these bigger boats that are owned by companies, they have crews that rotate. It's not the same deck crew and the same captain. This is literally transfers over. So it's just like a constant running machine. And we always say that that's catching, not fishing. And we say what we do is fishing, not catching.
Yeah, at least you give a chance to the fish, you know, to...
Yeah, and we have so much natural sustainability measures just from the environment here. The size of our tides locally, you know, what we all like brag about locally is our big tides and things like that. But actually that's a massive hindrance to us in the sense that you can't necessarily easily or safely fish those massive, massive tides we have. So certain harbours or certain areas just no one will go out. You know, that's a day off, if that makes sense. Or if they fish, they only fish a very specific time period in a specific area. So actually you've got natural boundaries. And when that weather blows the way it does, they're not fishing necessarily. So, you know, an eastern harbour might be able to fish, but the northern harbour or St. Helier harbour has to close for a bit. No one leaves. But, you know, the little east boats can get out because it's a bit calmer. Or if there's northeasterly, you know, they're not going.
About that.
Yeah, so different harbours open and close in the sense of when people can and can't fish, and that's a big impact. So naturally, I think it's like 165 days of the year is an amazing year fishing.
Wow.
If you think about it that way, that's crazy. So these guys aren't out every single day, and they aren't pulling constant rotating shifts and things like that. So you can't ask for a more sustainable sort of food source in that sense. And there is a lot of movement within the fleet to work with Jersey Fisheries to find more sustainable measures in what we can and can't do, and work together and for example, the tuna tagging project that's been going on recently. We were really fortunate. Well, my partner Leighton was really fortunate. He got to go on one of the fishery tagging projects for the tunas to see what they're doing and help tag and catch and release these fish to work out whether or not there is a sustainable stock or not. And that's just an amazing just part of what we're doing together. And it was him and a few other fishermen had the opportunity. And that's just an amazing change and adaptation that we're seeing in our waters, where we're trying to work out whether or not this is something that might be a sustainable fishery for us in the future as other things start to close off.
But Gabby, if you had the power, I mean, it's not like, probably you do, I don't know. If you had the power, what do we need to do in order to make it more? I mean, we know what the local, like what you guys are doing, and you're doing a lot of good things,
Thank you.
but from what you're telling me. But then obviously, the issue is, you know, we're getting people from outside. What's the solution? Do you feel like we've got something, we can do something, or Jersey is just too small in order to be capable to guard the waters the way they should be probably guarded?
I think that's a really difficult question, actually. And I think it's going to have so many parts to that, is all of it, if that makes sense, you know, in terms of, yeah, that's really difficult, because I think actually we have a big problem coming for our future. I'm not overly positive, if I'm honest, about at least our little Jersey Fisheries future. I hope there is still going to fight. We're going to fight through. That's the nature of a fisherman. They fight. So I hope that there is something there, but it is hard to be positive when in today you're seeing so many boats go and so many people retire, or so many people just leave the industry and go find jobs elsewhere because they're very employable. There's so many adaptable skills. So it's easy for them to find that work. So when everything's looking quite bad at the minute, it is tough to be positive about the future changes. I think in terms of outside influences, it's going to be really difficult. It's a very small fleet that hasn't had the airtime that it deserves inside of Jersey's media, inside of government. There hasn't been that real obvious support and love for them. And granted, equally as a fishing community, we need to do much more outreach to the local population. That's something that we really need to change. And we need to get better at our marketing in terms of as a wide industry, showcasing all the diverse jobs, showcasing how incredible these people are who do these jobs and how incredible this seafood is here and what it could be. And it doesn't have to be mass export or anything, but it could actually be locally sourced and stays local.
It could be amazing for the island.
Yeah, it really could. But it also could just be amazing for the morale of our fleet too, because it needs a bit of a boost. And I think over time, it hasn't had the airtime. So it's amazing for things like this opportunity here where I can actually talk about it and give an outreach, which we haven't had before, which is absolutely incredible. And I think that's a massive change that needs to come from us, but there needs to be a massive change in terms of our political support and how we're sort of just included and thought about a bit more. It feels currently that it isn't something that's a forethought. Other industries that give more economic input are the ones that become the forefront. And I imagine it's quite similar in hospitality, perhaps.
I was going to say, you have such a similar story from this perspective. And it's a shame because...
And we actually need each other, funnily enough.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason. Well, that's why, exactly. That's why I want to hear your story, because you are such an important system in these hospitality, and not just hospitality, like the island as a whole, because we take so many things for granted. We don't realize to get that fish, I mean, we're gonna get to it, because I kind of want to know what's a day in your life in terms of
it's very varied and it varies each day.
Because we take it for granted. Someone probably wakes up at 5, 4, whatever a.m. To get you that fish, that you don't even appreciate sometimes.
And also the cost that it comes to, just not in terms of, the time you have to wake up, the family cost where you have to be away, it's awkward hours, or even the physical cost. Your body, my partner is 32, and he already has a knee that needs to have surgery on it and he's only 32. And that just shows the physical toll this sort of job does take. And it doesn't always, of course, he was a bit unlucky and had an injury. But it came from his job, if that makes sense. And it's going to be a long-term problem for him. And it's the same across the board, whether it's a fish spine in your finger or something like that. There is sort of this physical part of it too. And this sort of mental, it absorbs a lot of who you are doing this sort of work.
His wind, his rain,
and it's cold. Even if you're crab picking, you're inside pretty much a fridge doing your job for however long in a day. And that's really takes a toll on someone. But actually, I find the community does uplift each other in that sense. So, I don't know.
It's good that it's a bit of camaraderie, although it seems like a really small group. But it's at least till to a degree, because probably it always can be better. It's kind of united, I guess, till to a point.
To a point, yeah. In general, there is a bit of a sort of camaraderie amongst everyone. Everyone wants to see the industry succeed and keep going into the future. And, that's going to take a lot of work, not only just from us, it's going to take a lot of work from the government side to make us sort of be able to work together better. And also it's going to take a lot of mindset changes for everybody, sort of as a population. There needs to be sort of a change in perception, and there needs to be sort of a change in way of doing things and how we eat as well. And that's probably across the board in terms of local produce as well. It's really easy just to go to a shop and buy whatever, but actually to support local and do the local thing does take a bit more effort, and it's more unusual. And the rise in sort of easy meals or boxes of food that tell you meal plans and things like that, rather than actually getting chicken breast from your local farmer, the broccoli from there and your seafood from there. It does have an impact on how actually the ease of food now makes it harder to actually support the real food. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, how many times I like cooking. I've always been around cooking my whole life, and you do get tempted sometimes. Like
of course I do too.
Yeah, but as long as I think you don't make it a rule, make an exception. Not a rule that you're gonna eat, I don't know, frozen whatever stuff every day. You're just gonna chuck in the microwave and all that. I think we're gonna head into in a better direction. But do you feel like there are more people kind of like walking out the industry than coming in now. Is that a threat to you, to your industry?
Hugely, yeah. There is no one coming in. Like, there's literally, it's so difficult to find anyone, whether you're looking for deck crew, whether you're looking for a fishmonger, whether you're looking for a crab picker, whatever you're looking for, the people just generally aren't there. And particularly people who have the drive to do the hours, drive to do this sort of more physical and mental work that it requires, and actually people with the right skills to be able to do it. There just isn't anyone coming through, and it's really difficult, and it's hard to get the right permissions because of the housing situations and things like that. So it's actually, and it's really difficult to bring in any foreign workers. And then once you get them here, it's even, it's really difficult too. And although they can be a great resource and a great commodity, from the local population as well, you'll see all over Facebook and websites that there are fishmongers looking for employees all over the place. All of us are, if anyone's out there, give me a shout. But, and it is really difficult. And it's the same in hospitality as well. And all those sort of key individuals, and obviously the buzzword of Brexit hasn't helped very much with that ease. And the cost of living here is making it harder, isn't it? Because traditionally our jobs aren't those that can keep up with the inflation of the housing prices. I'm a prime example. I live with my mother-in-law because actually we sort of worked out the cost of renting versus how much I work. What's the point in paying that rent, when I'm not really using the house much? So, and that rose every single year, and it was getting to silly prices, and you just go, hang on a minute, take a step back. But I'm very fortunate I'm able to do that. That's not the case for, any of my employees today. I couldn't ask any of them to do that. And they rely on me to be able to make the business work so I can keep them employed and keep their families safe and keep them housed. And that's actually quite, I think, a mental drain that people maybe forget about in terms of these industries. It's the same whether you're the captain of your boat and you have a deck crew, whether you own the merchant side or you own a cafe or a restaurant. Your employees become so much of a fundamental thing you think about 24/7, and keeping them safe and being able to give them the support they need. Because right now, I imagine, and from what I hear, most places, whether it's in fishing or hospitality, are struggling for employees that the current ones are really having to pick up the slack, where they really need to be supported and be easily able to find good staff who can do the job and support them and make it a great working environment and a great sector and an enjoyable thing for everyone else to come and enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. So how is a day in your life looking like? I mean, I know it probably varies quite a lot, especially now you've got the cafe and you got like all sorts of, you are probably bouncing in between places. But in terms of fishing, how does it look like?
Oh, it really does vary. As you say, it literally can be any day. It changes. Generally, I pretty much wake up at 5:30 every day. So I'm quite lucky. That's actually quite a late start. Some of the other companies, someone's there from 4. So I feel bad for them. I'm all right. It's our business, so I can take a lie in. But yeah, so I'm pretty much 5:30. I need to be, if I'm at the harbour at 6, I'm kind of late, kind of thing. So I'll be there. First thing, we're boiling the crab up. So every single day, Isabel comes in. So 6 days a week, she comes in. So I always have fresh crab out. We have Vivier tanks. So we keep all the crab and lobster in those. Every day we boil up a load of crab for her to pick. So she spends the day picking that, and that gets distributed out to the cafes and restaurants. So normally once she's picking, we deliver what was picked the afternoon before or the morning before, and that goes round to, we go and deliver it ourselves. So sometimes it's just me, sometimes it's both of us, just depends on
who's available.
Who's available and, how busy our days are. And if we haven't spent much time together as a couple in the coupley way, the drive can be quite fun, And we pretty much always go down the driftwood, so we'll get like a snack on the way back and we make something out of it if we can. But generally once you get to peak season, it's just go. So you sort of try to do those first thing before, if I'm leaving at 7, I'm running late, for those deliveries. We try to, at that point, then either go out on the boat, we either rod fish or pot fish. Sometimes I get stuck on land, either I'm doing all the paperwork and all of that sort of thing, or a lot of the fish preps. So if there's a lot of wet fish that's come in, I'll do all the sort of the prep for the restaurants and do that real fishmongery side. And he might have to go off and start fishing. So he will go off on his own and take the boat out and go fish, whilst I do all the land-based jobs. Or The other option is I go out on the boat with him and we fish together and have a day on the sea together working, and we'll pull pots. So on average, we need to do about 200 in a day to make it efficient for the day, to make it a worthwhile day. So, you're out there for a good 6 to 10 hours kind of thing. So it's a long, long day. But you are outside, so it's not too bad, unless it's hailing and horrid.
We get a lot.
Then you feel kind of hardy and warm when you get home. So, it makes a beer worthwhile kind of thing. But yeah, so it varies so much. Whether it depends on the demand as well that we're kind of having in. If I know I need to get on the deliveries, I've got to do all the fish prep, then he has to just go fish. But if we have a bit more of a slower sort of day planned or whatever, we can go together and we'll both go out to sea and pull the pots, do the rods and things like that. So we kind of actually plan our day about 9 o'clock at night is when we decide what that day might look like. And then normally by about 6:30, it's completely changed and there's a new plan in place. Just because something else wild has just come in and you're going, okay, I probably should sort that one out. And, it's quite funny. And that's mostly influenced by hospitality, to be fair.
Well, yeah.
And when the different chefs clock off and do their checks for what they need, it's funny because there's different time and different days I know who might text me when and things like that. Because I normally run by a text message rather than an answering machine or anything.
Yeah. But I find it so complicated in a way, because if, let's say, I'm a chef, I remember like when I was working and I'm asking, get me 10 sea bass. And then you go fishing, you don't get 10 sea bass. You probably don't get any.
No, I do.
How do you keep this relationship? Because, inevitably people get disappointed, I guess,
They do.
But it's just the nature of the job. You obviously want to sell that product because that's your job, right?
Yeah.
To make it work. But it's not always the case. You just can't provide something.
Yeah, I want it there all the time, but it's just not how it works. And there is a huge case of you do lose some people, and a lot of chefs, not all, want the ease of constant supply, not doing what we do. And, there is a boundary and a balance, I think, between having the constant supply and then being able to adapt and bring in that local when you do have it, and to be able to quickly replace it or merge it into what you're doing or putting it onto a specials board. I think it's a really easy, quick way that anyone can start incorporating the local seafood. It's not about necessarily telling you to not do it at all, because I do understand the demand as a restaurant owner or something, or a chef. You need to know how stressful would that be if you didn't know your product's there, and you never know it's going to be. So actually being able to be sort of more playful or work with it to the degree that would really help. It doesn't have to be just always that, but when it's there, don't turn it down. And also, bear in mind that the price differences of local is more expensive than what you're buying in, but what you're buying in, the quality isn't anywhere near as good. That
freshness and everything.
Freshness, just everything.
Across the board, I guess. Yeah.
Across the board. Like, you can't compete with locally caught fresh produce that, has been with you within less than a day most of the time. You just can't compete with that. The flavour, the freshness, the nutrients, all of it is just outstanding. But it comes at a slightly higher price, not by much normally. And sometimes actually it can be cheaper depending on what it is.
Demand. And
but for example, sea bass, we speak about sea bass a bit. That's a really easy example. And also the sizes. Local seafood is what comes up. It's not graded and sent to you in a certain size category. So it makes your job as a chef a little bit harder, because you have to trim a bit more. You have to, it's not all the same size. So it does make it more difficult. It makes it more time consuming. It's not as easy. So I do totally get that. And it's not as a constant thing. It is as and when it comes. And sometimes some years, it just doesn't stop coming. The local seafood is there. The fish are there. That species particularly is there. Other years, it's just not there.
How is mackerel this year, by the way?
It's not bad. It's okay.
Is it actually? Because it's all
right.
Every year, to be fair, like it comes in Jersey Evening Post. Mackerel is not here again. What's going on? Probably,
I think they put that one out this year, and within 2 days we had caught 50 kilos of it. So that one made us giggle a lot, to be fair. I think there's very much a Jersey sort of historic memory of mackerel fishing here. We all had it when we were kids,
We're a bit more romantic about it, I guess.
Yeah, it was easier. You could put your rod down.
I love it, and you get 3 or 4 and they go in all sorts of directions.
Nowadays it's harder. You don't just catch it from the piers anymore. You don't just catch it from having a sort of a recreational boat that doesn't go so far. When we go for it, we do probably put away 2 days of hunting it down to work out exactly where they are. Wow. We'll sacrifice that to go find them, to work out what their patterns are, where they are, so we can work out where they're going, how we're going to fish them.
And that's with like radar or something? Like
no, that's just...
You just see them at the surface?
No, this is just Leighton's brain. He's part fish, I'm sure. Like he's just got a natural...
Comes with experience, I guess.
Yeah, it's experience. He got trained by some incredible fishermen themselves. Like they got trained by some amazing guys. He also just has this crazy passion and love for it. Like 24/7, that guy is YouTubing or something on fishing or some different fishing technique or different fish habits. He even goes like free diving and spearfishing just to be in the environment so he can understand how they're behaving. Like when I say this guy absorbs this stuff, it's fascinating. So for him, working out how they might be feeding, where they might be, what rock types and what structures do they need underwater, and what drift are they on, and what tide size are we, because that plays an impact if the fish are going to bite or not, and things like that. So there's all these factors, but you have to go look for them and have a hunch. You always need a hunch. And of course you've got a sounder on board, so you can see if there's a shoal of fish. But it takes really knowing where you're going to go check with the sounder to know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You can't know from the pier, that they're going to be there. You need to be kind of close to them, right?
There's no clever computer on our boats that tell you that. You just have to have that natural knowledge. And that's the difference where I say fishing and catching. There's a natural knowledge and a sort of a historic knowledge that gets passed down. And you have to use that. You don't have a computer on board that just tells you the shoal's here and it's swimming this direction and there's this many. All you know is that you think it's there, kind of thing. And sometimes you're right and other times you're wrong, and that's fishing. That makes sense.
But then, like everybody's kind of talking about, is a crazy topic now, these AI, technology in general. Technology in general, Do you feel like this is coming into your field? Or is he playing a big role?
It's funny because I was literally just YouTubing the other night about ChatGPT and things. So we're looking at actually how that can help us in our business. Maybe not so much in the sort of the physicality of the fishing, but in the other areas that we try to cover, like the marketing and things like that.
Marketing, absolutely. Yeah, there are many people using it.
But in general, not so much, I think, in Jersey, in our fleet immediately at all, but across the board, yes. And I think it's already been encroaching, and that's where I'm talking about these sort of super boats. They're almost like supercomputers, and they have so much technology, and that technology does all the work. It tells you where they're going, how many fish are there, how much weightage of fish is inside that shoal, and how it can basically plot the nets. The nets can tell you how much is in there. And it is just insane, the level of tech that makes this job so much easier on these big, massive boats. And even then, there's automated processing coming about. And particularly in the fish world, I think in terms of wet fish, which is like sea bass, bream, all that sort of thing, there's definitely machines now that are replacing humans. Crab picking, not so much. I have actually been really wanted to try contact some local agencies about getting an AI crab picker. So if anyone likes that sort of thing, just because at some point, I won't have Isabel forever, and looking into the long-term future, actually what I'd love, if she could teach it how to do it, if that makes sense, that'd be awesome. But yeah, there is people looking into that. There are companies looking into that, but that sort of side of the processing, AI processing and stuff, that hasn't happened yet properly, at least not what I know of. I mean, I like to do a bit of research, but not I'm aware of, but it's coming.
But in a way, it's crazy because, the more technology you put in these boats, the less chances the fish will ever have.
Exactly.
So it's like to the point that you're going to empty the sea, the more technology. Yeah. It's not like they have no chance, basically.
There is no. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's such an unfair fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like our big problems with it, where it's just not right, and it's overdoing it. And if actually the populations were fed by their local producers, it would be so much better, and the stocks might be able to replenish, things might be able to replenish. But right now, it's just constant effort with fish with no chance, basically. And it's not that I say just stop fishing. Obviously, I don't. Yeah. But you can fish sustainably, and fishing can be sustainable, and it is in certain places. And I find, quite often in social media or on streaming sites, there's a lot of push against fishing as an industry, and it gives a very bad light, and it sort of paints the entire entire industry worldwide with the same brush, where actually there are some very small scale fisheries that do exist, that work sustainably and try to work towards a future that's more sustainable, that do exist, and they get ostracized with the same brush that this sort of mass easy marketing media sort of strategies have. And with these emotive musics in the background and all of this, where actually another argument isn't presented. It isn't showing how about this, and this, or how the fishermen actually helped this area, you know. So that is a big sort of problem that we will have always, fighting that kind of sort of influence.
Well, that's why I'm so glad that you are here, because now you can talk about it, right? So then hopefully people will hear more and more people will hear about this. How is your relationship with the restaurant? You know, who are your best friends in this hospitality world?
Oh gosh, that's quite not sure I should answer that one. There are obviously a couple of places where I see very, very regularly. Some places come and go in terms of the seasons. Other chefs, and not a lot of chefs will come and go, obviously.
We don't need to give names specifically if you don't feel like it's appropriate, but are you in good terms with them, would you say?
Yeah, the ones I deal with regularly, I have really good relationships with. And I mean, because I also use sort of a text-based system, so I'm so boutique and niche, like this is so local. I will literally text you when I have it, or you text me and find out what might I have. Obviously, there's always a few staples, the crab meat, the scallops, things like this. I can always pretty much get my hands on for you. Like, that's fine. But, you know, the fish-wise and things, in terms of if people want to, the chefs will text me, the owners will text me, I will text them. I might say, hey, I've got a load of bass coming in. Hey, I've got a load of mackerel, and find out. And generally there's a few chefs I always know want it. So you have those good relationships and you have that sort of chattiness with them. It's not a machine. It's not a computer system. It's still human beings talking. Yeah. And I find that really helps as well, because then those chefs can start understanding about the local side a lot more and the fluctuations and how they can help us. And some of them really do get really on board with it. And, you know, a lot of those you can see posting on Facebook and Instagram and tagging us in as well, because they know the importance of showing
Dave, them.
Yeah, that's one guy, you know. That's one guy.
Yeah,
the Bass and Lobster are brilliant at that, you know, and they're always tagging us in. So it's companies like that really do try to do local and support local. And they really do work with us really well. And there's a few other chefs as well that you can work really well with, and they're really understanding. Tommy's another one, for example, and multiple others, you know. But there's some really cool key guys, and women as well, who we deal with, who you can have these great relationships, and actually together we might be able to change how things are done and change how people see food and see local produce, which is really just exciting. Obviously, there are always times where you don't have great relationships with places. It just happens. I think I'm on about my 3rd restaurant count of not being paid so far and having to chase. Yeah, that's not always great to hear, is it? But, you know, there's always times where some people have got annoyed that the local produce just isn't there. The local seafood isn't there, and it's not easy enough, so they're out. I refuse to fillet and pin bone for everybody. So, you know, it's just me. And if I won't do that, then they're not interested. And yet the sort of, you don't have time or enough people to do it. Do you really think I do? Kind of thing, you know, sometimes. But it's more that, you know, I don't offer ease. I won't lie. My seafood isn't as easy as it just coming in. You know, I don't do pre-filleting for you. I only do that for driftwoods. Because, you know, I do have a really small kitchen and a small team. And, you know, that's my way of being able to give my input. And I've made these massive changes to a menu. Then, you know, sure, I'm going to help out where I can. And I love it. You know, why not do what I'm naturally doing?
You don't want to lose that skill as well.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, I have to fill it most days anyway on the van on the weekends. So, you know.
Exactly, because you do the van,
Yeah, so I have to do that as well. So that's always good. But and that has given me so much education on how to go about, I think, things into the future as well, and learning about how that sort of front facing works as well. And obviously all the filleting and things like that. I couldn't do that 3 years ago. You know, it's a new skill.
I think the van is actually such a good idea, because also that's how I see it. I mean, I don't know, but correct me if I'm wrong, but you interact directly with people, and you can have like some sort of like communication, you know, not just like, okay, a fisherman is only the one on the boat, or, you know, it's so much more than that, you know.
Thank you.
We can, you can probably even like teach people, or tell them certain things that they never really thought about.
Yeah, 100%.
It's interaction directly with a potential customer that will go into the restaurant, which hopefully at some point will demand a different fish than just sea bass or something else. So I think it's just such a chain reaction that you can start from getting directly with the customers,
Yeah, that was kind of the point. It was one of the reasons for it. Yeah. Obviously the van, we wanted something really cool and quirky, but being able to access, and also Jersey folk, we don't like leaving our parishes. We all get very parish orientated.
Yeah.
So if actually you can move what you want to sell them to where they are and they want to buy it, then even better. So if you can dot yourself around and move around, it's absolutely brilliant, because you're hitting different communities inside your own that, might not necessarily have come to you in, say, you're the other side of the island, the other side of the tunnel or something. So actually I'm stopping that argument fully and I'm going, right, I'll come to you, like an ice cream van. That
no
was kind
excuses,
of like a driver an ice cream van. That was kind of the idea. And that's just been amazing, because actually, as you say, you can engage with people and you can speak to them, and they have so many questions and they do want to understand. And that's what's been really amazing, whether it's issues with Brexit, COVID, or any other sort of fishing related dramas that might have been in the news, or just in general, climate change, whatever it is. People want to talk and ask you questions. And if you're able just to be there and give them truthful, honest answers, and actually be able to give them an answer, because I find it, I'm on the boats, I'm down the harbour.
The trade. Yeah.
I can give them the truth. It's not just me sort of not really knowing and just standing there. It is like I'm so fully absorbed by that industry, and you kind of can give an answer, and a truthful one. And if I don't know the answer, generally I'll just call Leighton and be like, Leighton, help, and then, or I'll go grab him and be like, have a chat with him.
But you care. That's the ultimate.
There's a direct connection between the fishing industry and the people. So it's just made such an influence, and it's made such a difference. Even just being able to come here and talk with you, that wouldn't have happened really if I hadn't had that sort of van and those relationships with people in restaurants and things like that.
Absolutely. Okay, so we know that there are more people going out from the industry than coming in. But for those that want to come in, what's your advice for someone thinking about, this sounds like a stuff. We all know it. I mean, even if, let's say, I've never done, I wouldn't be able to do it on the boat. I'm just not good on the boats yet. So even if I want to, probably I need like a pack of pills with me in order to survive the waves. Yeah, I guess it's
biscuits. It's ginger nut biscuits.
Is that what helps? Okay.
Yeah, supposedly it might be my excuse to eat ginger nut biscuits, to be fair, but
yeah,
that's always what I was told as a kid.
I'm actually sometimes bad even on the ferry, and that doesn't move much. So yeah.
Some of our boats are a bit more smashy than rolly though. So
I'm sure. So what would be your advice for someone that is thinking about getting into the industry? What do you have in mind?
I think, be ready to work and prove yourself. Respect at a harbour isn't just given to you. You earn it, no matter who you are. Girl, boy, woman, man, whatever. It isn't about you. It's about actually how much graft you're going to put in, and if you're going to show up and do it and be able to keep doing it, if that makes sense, and to really just go for it. It can be intimidating. It's exhausting. And I think almost every fishing boat, particularly sort of a potting boat, whether it's an American or a Jersey or wherever, they will tell you there's a wall, and you will hit that wall one day, and it comes very, very, very quickly. And it's your ability to physically and mentally get yourself over that wall. And I think any fisherman who might hear this will know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's this ability to just push yourself that much further, and you find that extra 10% that you never had before. And I've seen, and most people will be able to tell you, they've seen big, heavy, big guys from the gyms and all this go on a boat and collapsing on the floor. And it's not that they're seasick, it's that they physically didn't have it. And it's sort of that, and it's not that they're not capable of doing that, but in the environment in which you're doing it and the way you have to move your body and how fast it is completely different. And I think that is a massive part of it, just that mental and physical ability to just get over and keep going. And every time you get nicked or, barnacle scratch you, it stings like crazy. And, some people get put off just by that, let alone all the other sort of nicks and bangs you get. But actually, if you can just keep focused on the positives, just keep going and just keep going.
Because there's definitely a lot of positive about this industry.
Yeah.
It's not just
hugely. But if you think smarter, and don't work harder as well. You know, it's like any industry, you know, think smarter.
Make your life easier.
Yeah, don't work so hard if you don't have to. If there's an easier way for you to do that or move that, then do it. But actually just enjoy it. You're not there to be, you know, it's a different way of life. It's a lifestyle, if that makes sense as well. It's not a vocation, it's a lifestyle. It's a life choice. And you have to accept that's your choice that you made. And actually, once you do, it is one of the most freeing and amazing things. And it's such a welcoming industry and it's such an amazing place to be. And once you make that choice and really just understand that's who you are and that's where you belong. And if you really do, it's just going to be brilliant. And, you know, it's just one of those where I say, just give it a go. If you're actually interested and think this is something you could do, whether or not it's grafting on a boat or whether you want to go do crab picking or, you know, whatever, like there are jobs there and they can be fun and exciting, you know, and, you know, you get all the other boring office jobby bits, which other people find really fun, which, you know, I have to do, but
well, someone's got to do it.
Yeah, someone's got to do it. So, you know, that falls on me because I can't fix a boat engine. So we had to pull straws on that.
Probably not, but I'm sure if we do a podcast in a few years' time.
Maybe, but I have generally not got the brain for that, oddly. No, oddly you're not. I'm not that sort of minded. But, you know, he can do the welding and the mechanics, but, you know, I'll write the emails and do the paperwork. And that's sort of how we work as a team, I guess. So, you know, you've always got to find that counterpart, don't you? Who can do the bits, you know, A and B, yin and yang kind of thing. Well done. But yeah, if someone wants to come, just do it and just do it wholeheartedly. Don't half step in, fully absorb yourself into it and just fully go for it. And know it will be tough at first, but that's just exhaustion. You didn't not enjoy yourself. You were just really exhausted. And then you'll be fine. And then you just get used to it. Yeah, and then you build a certain level and then you just go again. And then, you know, and then as long as you get your sleep in when you can, that's all part of it.
Okay, so now I found something, not something new. I found a lot of new things.
Thank you.
And I already, I found also about the business that you guys opened at the beginning of this year. What other plans you've got, like in terms of business-wise, you know, I'm not talking personal necessarily. I'm talking business-wise. Do you have anything else in mind?
Oh, loads. Honestly, us two, we're just constantly, we have sort of a list as long as your arm, kind of more going. But one of the key things we really want to get into, certainly within next year, we want to hit a lot more on media platforms like TikTok and YouTube and actually create engaging content where you can sort of see the day in the life of, or just follow us around, and we can allow people into our world and allow people into the fishing world and really let them experience it. You know, granted it's through video, but it's through us, faces they might know, and introduce them to the rest of the community and show how fishing works in Jersey, how it can be sustainable and what it is and how to fillet fish, how to make a crab cake, you know, but in a fun way, you know, just bringing some lightheartedness to it. It's not all doom and gloom and serious and staged.
I mean, you are a very vibrant person. I'm sure it would be absolutely amazing, you know, doing a TikTok on the boat.
You know, it's fun stuff like that. And then you can engage all sorts of communities and age ranges as well. And it's so important to engage with the youngsters and all the way up to your pensioners. It's so important. All those groups are so vital to you from that age span, whether they're going to be new potential customers or their parents could be, or whether or not they're going to be lifelong, going to be at your cafe or buy that perfect bit of crab meat or whatever. It's so vital to be part of all those groups, and media is an amazing way to do it. And it's an amazing way to engage and show stories and show the truth of things and to actually educate. And I think that's perhaps one of the biggest things that we need to do is educate more, and in a positive, lighthearted way, you know, and make a change and start showing a different side of things. So that's one really, really key thing. And then we've got a few changes we want to do at the cafe as well to change it up again a little bit. So that's a bit more secret though. So
okay, yeah, we'll keep the secret.
I'm waiting on a tick for that, basically.
We'll do a future episode on that then, whenever it happens.
Cool. But yeah, it's just about changing up and constantly moving and going forward.
I think, in terms of like the first plan, you know, with social media and doing that, I think this is amazing. And I do believe that's not going to help just Jade Fisheries. It's going to help the industry as a whole, you know, because if you do this, not just because it's not going to, it's going to put a good light on the whole industry. And also maybe other people will be influenced. You know, if Gabby can do it, I can do a TikTok. Brilliant, or, you know, and I think it's great because more people will understand it, you know. from outside I'm talking, will understand what's going on there, and probably will have a bit more respect and everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the end goal, basically. If we can get even just some people changing up their habits, some people more keen or just watching and sort of hearing, and even whether or not they want to eat seafood or not, you know, them learning from us and from those that we can showcase could be vital to getting the support that we need to keep what we have left going into the future. You know, it doesn't need to be massively big or anything, but let's sustain and try get a bit more youth coming through who might want to give this a go. But, you know, all of that is just being out there and putting, and, you know, that's quite scary.
Making it exciting.
Putting your face out there and speaking up and saying, this is what we think are the problems and this is what we think will help is quite big, and it's quite nerve-wracking to go, actually, you know, there's lots riding on us to make sure we're saying the right thing and it's going to be the right idea. And, you know, putting your face out there when it's so easy to, you know, it's easy to do, but it's actually terrifying to do, and to know you've got it right. But it's something that we both have talked about for a really long time, and both agree that perhaps it's now time for us to start really pushing it down that line. It might not make us the money side of it, no, but actually what it could do, the long-term future and the things we believe in could be really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So for people that want to find you, where on social media, where do they find you?
Most easy is Facebook or Instagram. We're pretty active on both of those, and it's always me replying. So that's just Jade-S Fisheries Jersey, and that's Jade.
But that's Gabby, yeah.
Yeah, Jade's the boat. Jade is the boat. So, Jade-S is what the boat's called. So we named it for the sustainability, so you can trace where your seafood comes from. So there's always the name of the boat there, so you can trace that way. I did suggest that might not work in the long run, but, you know, one of those.
There might be another plan, changing the name of the boat now.
Yeah, well, that's more bad luck. So it's better I change my name, apparently. So that's
you change your name into Jade and sorted,
Yeah, I'm not sure what my mum will have to say, but, you know, my family will find it quite funny, to be fair. They all call me up and be like, hi, Jade. So, you know, it's quite a laugh. But yeah, so basically that's Jade-S Fisheries Jersey, and you'll find it. There's a big picture of Leighton and I's smiling faces on the Instagram, and the boat and our faces in the van on the Facebook, so it's pretty easy to find. We do have a Twitter, but I'm not as active on there, but you can find me or ping me if you want a message or something.
And then soon on TikTok and on YouTube.
Soon TikTok and YouTube
and
stuff, So soon, hopefully, all of that as well. I wanted to do that ages ago, but now I'm getting into a place where, you know, that's it. But right now, the core focus is the Facebook and Insta, and we also have a website too, which is jadesfisheries.com. So you can find a little bit more out there. There's actually a section where I'm going to start writing blog posts as well.
Yeah, and blogs are actually quite important in terms of like SEO as well.
Exactly, for the SEO basically.
Yeah.
So
and also, you know, it's not just that. You know, you've got to say something meaningful. So I'm sure you'll find you'll put there information that probably a regular Joe will not know about. Like I found out quite a few things today, for example, and I like to believe that I was kind of connected at some point with the fishing industry because I was a chef, but still, you know, I learned quite a few things today. So
thank you.
I'm sure a lot of people will have a lot to learn from the blogs and from the videos that are coming.
That's the hope. And I think they're always quite fun. And I think keep them fun, lighthearted. Do some serious ones, you know, but I want to keep them fun, lighthearted. I've actually got guest blogs hopefully coming from friends and family who are associated. So my mum, actually, true to my mum's form, has written one all about mental health and actually sort of the physical parts of your brain and how seafood can help maintain good memory and sort of avoid other sort of nasty degenerative diseases that are sort of neurological, and how evidence has been shown on that. So she's got a PhD and all that sort of stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really fascinating. Yeah, it's really fascinating. So I've got her coming in to write me something that, you know, is just another interesting point that people don't necessarily think about. Changing your lifestyle. So it's like this new thing called lifestyle medicine, and it basically changes how you eat, how you move, and what you do to give yourself a healthier body and ward off all these things, and actually perhaps some of this. all comes down to what you eat. And so sort of finding, even I've got a friend who's a hairdresser. She's going to do a piece for me about, you know, how it can help with your nails and your hair and stuff. Just so every aspect of it can be covered. You know, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but
I think it's really quite cool.
Truthfully something that does make a difference and can be of an interest to anybody reading, whether, you know, you want the more seafood recipes or here's a story about how I became a fisherman or whatever, you know. And I want to do those posts with, you know, meet the fisherman or meet the fisherwoman or meet the fisher, you know, and it's all the different faces of the harbour and what they do. So everybody can kind of be included.
Yeah, that's actually so cool. And I really hope that it's about starting. Genuinely, it's about starting. I mean, when I started the podcast, I'm like, man, I'm so ready. I mean, not in terms of like gear and all that, because that's something you can buy. And that's probably the easiest, you know, although it's a big investment, you know, you can buy it, you can own it. That's not a big deal, you know, putting yourself out there, you know, especially myself. English is not my first language. So I might screw up, you know, every here and there. I'm okay with it, you know, as long as your message is let's say out there and it has an impact, I can be rubbish. That's fine. I'm okay with it, you know.
Okay, sounds right.
I'm all good. And your message, you got such a strong message, and I hope that whoever needs to listen and whoever has got the power, you know, to change something in good, they're listening or are watching, because we're going to be on all sorts of platforms. So yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. I genuinely really enjoyed it. I'm sure we're going to do more. Maybe even with your partner or something, and just working on a setup to get 2 or 3 guests. That'd and then cool. After that, you know, hopefully we'll get more people, and maybe even, because I do want to get a lot more people from the suppliers, basically, you know, whether he's from the fishing side, whether he's going to be a farmer, you know, whether it's somebody else.
That'd be interesting, yeah. So because I think there'd be a lot of similar stories. Fishing, farming, hospitality. I think really our stories are probably very similar, and we all have the same issues as well, and maybe actually there are ways where we can all work together to help each other with that as well. And it'll be only you know, it's when you get around a table and you start asking questions like that are probing, that, you know, actually start hearing, oh wait, hang on, what about that? And that could work really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolute pleasure. I'm sure I'll see you in the next one.